So Super Rugby round 14 is all done now. We've had 6 results over the last however many hours. And yeah, I'm wearing a jersey I haven't worn before, but I guess more on that later. The first result, Sunwolves 26, take it at the death with a last minute drop goal from Hayden Parker over the Stormers 23. Yeah, man, the Sunwolves, 2 wins in a row. It was kind of half expected, I suppose. Like, they've actually looked a lot better over recent weeks, and plus playing in pretty warm Hong Kong, one would think served to their advantage. In terms of the game itself, the first thing that was a bit boggling to my mind was that the sponsor logos on the field, baby crying, sponsor logos on the field were not painted. Obviously, a lot of the grounds they just added on digitally, so people at the ground won't actually see anything on the ground, but when you're watching on TV, you can see all the logos. Whatever that effect is however it's produced, it didn't really match with the referee's uniform. So whenever he stood over that digitally imposed logo, it would also impose on his shirt. So he would kind of disappear his body. It was bizarre. But apart from that, there was a rugby game that was played. Yeah, it was smart from the Sunwolves. They were using their long line-out throws, keeping things as quick as possible. The scrum was under a bit of pressure. The Stormers, it's more same old with like loose passes and soft tackles. It's that kind of stuff that's really kind of killed their season. The Sunwolves offloading game was good, and when it clicks, it clicks. I really think there's a lesson there for the Blues that if you just sometimes play helter-skelter rugby, sometimes it'll go to custard, but sometimes it will click and you'll put teams under pressure, and that's kind of what the Sunwolves were doing. Baby crying. Sunwolves, more run meters, higher tackle percentage, better line-out percentage. That Stormers line-out is still a struggle. Ramon Samuels, man, it's hard to give all the blame to him, but sometimes his line-out throwing is not the best. Offloads were 21-5 in favour of the Sunwolves. And this is a Stormers team which over the last couple of years is supposed to have kind of sharpened up that aspect of their game. I thought that's what kind of Feeney was over there doing with them, trying to not just offloads, but just general kind of heads-up skills. But 21-5 is pretty shocking. Parker, really clutch moment to secure that drop goal at the end. Got the win. Yeah, he got penalties in the 70-something minute as well. So very clutch from him, late penalty and late drop goal to get the win. Yeah, and I mean, it was the 82nd minute that they were scrambling from their own kind of 22 up the field, built phases. It's a deserved win if you can get it out from your own 22 and manage to get some points to take it, I think. Really disappointing from the Stormers. In terms of the way the log is sitting, they needed a win at least, and preferably a bonus point win, and they've gone and suffered another away loss. That's it for the Stormers, surely. Season done. It begs the question about the coach. He's not been helped by all the injuries they've had this season, but that was a really disappointing performance. But credit to the Sunwolves, they've really upped their game. It makes you wonder what they could have done if they'd had a proper preseason. You know, things have only been starting to click over the last kind of month, and that's starting to show in their results. So yeah, Sunwolves go away to the Rebels next week, who'd better look out when they come off that bye, because if they're not sharp, the Sunwolves are in form, and the Stormers are back at home to face the Lions. I guess if nothing else, they'll be able to try and spoil the Lions' season and try and put a kind of halt on them storming to that first place in the South African Conference. But yeah, an upset, but yeah, I think deserved in the end. Next one, the Blues have gone down 24 points to 32 against the Crusaders. And you'll notice from this board, if you scored 24 points this week, it was not going to be your day, really. So, yeah, 24-32, 4 tries apiece. Duffy, Rieko Ioane got 2, and Collins for the Blues. Bridge, Strange, Todd, and Hall for the Crusaders. Man, Crusaders got off to a pretty quick start on a wet night in Auckland. Crotty went off after 10 minutes from the head bin, which is again concerning because that guy really struggles to put kind of a certain number of performances together before he has to sit out some games due to whatever reason. So disappointing for him. Also for the Blues, Duffy went off after a kind of mid-air clash fairly early on as well, which was disappointing. What wasn't disappointing was the matchup between Goodhue and Sonny Bill. That was very interesting. Two very big gentlemen crashing into each other a fair bit. For the most part, they had each other's numbers pretty well. Crusaders probably just a bit smarter. Like if you look at the stats, there wasn't really... I mean, Crusaders had more possession and territory, especially in the first half, but the Blues had a higher tackle percentage by quite a bit. So it wasn't like the Blues were blown off the park here, but the Crusaders were just smarter. You look at the try they scored from the maul, like the Blues did that whole thing where they don't engage the maul, so they're going to try and get the Crusaders to concede a penalty, but the Crusaders didn't move the ball to the back, so there's no obstruction, and the Crusaders were pretty much just able to walk over. Yeah, Crusaders got a yellow card. Blues unable to kind of capitalise on it. They did score a try, but the Crusaders also got a penalty during that period. Yeah, so it's kind of becoming a regular thing for the Crusaders to get yellow cards. So that is one thing that they will have to watch out, because it's if they got the Canes next week, and if you're going to play the Canes, you definitely want 15 guys on the park. The Blues have got a bye, so. I mean, the Blues haven't been terrible. It does seem like their game is improving, but they just can't beat Kiwi teams to save themselves, and they still haven't got a win at Eden Park. So it is still a pretty hard-looking season for the minute. It's not been going that great. At least Rieko Ioane on the left wing looks pretty good. That seems to be... I mean, he's just better there than he seems in the midfield anyway. I mean, maybe give him a go when he's got a better team around him. I don't know, but he definitely seems very comfortable on that left wing. So yeah, Bridge also had a good night on his left wing as well. So yeah, good game. Not the result for the Blues, but pretty much expected. No bonus point for the Crusaders, which is kind of encouraging for the Blues. Like, they didn't get blown away. Next game, and hence the shirt. I've been hanging on to this jersey for a while. I bought it second hand, not too expensive, but yeah, waiting for something to happen with the Aussie Conference, and it's finally happened. The streak has ended. 40, I think it was 40 in a row to New Zealand teams has now been busted, so we're back to 1-0 to Australia. Yeah, 41-12 Waratahs over the Highlanders. 2 tries to Naira Ovora and Falau. Fakiti got 1 and Rona got 1 for the Highlanders. Elliott and Ash Dixon both went over for a try. The story of this game is probably the red card to David Nabura. It was kind of just like a kick to the head of Cam Clark. And he was jumping up for a high ball, and it's kind of common for guys, some guys in the way they take the high ball is to put their legs out in a way which kind of braces themselves from, someone coming into them. But Cam Clark did the right thing as the oncoming winger. He stopped and was waiting for Nabura to hit the ground before he would go in and tackle him. He had pretty much come to a complete stop. And Nabura had his leg bent and then just extended the foot into his face. I've checked the Highlanders Facebook page to see what most of them thought of it, and most of them have pretty much condemned him as pretty stupid for doing that. There's a few who are saying, this is just the refs trying to get back in the Waratahs' good books after missing that Moody hit on Beale last week. I don't think so. I mean, I know they released the kind of revamped, or they got a new Karate Kid show, Cobra Kai, out on YouTube Red. I think Tavita Nabura has been watching too much of that because, yeah, that's not the kind of thing you're supposed to do in rugby. Kicks to the face, generally not acceptable. So, yeah, pretty dumb. Highlanders down to 13 men at one point when Aaron Smith got yellow carded for a deliberate knockdown when going for an intercept. That rule's still kind of frustrating for the fans, as the commentators mentioned as well. It's a bit of a lottery sometimes whether it's going to be a yellow card, a penalty, or if it's just going to be nothing, like a legitimate attempt to get the ball. So yeah, I mean, I must say though that even though this game, how many minutes was it that they played with 14 men? It was about 60. I think the first 20 minutes were pretty much the Waratahs looking the better team anyway. I think it was 8-0 before the yellow card, so red card. I don't think it was the deciding factor in the game. Of course, you never know. You can speculate. The Highlanders are a pretty good team at coming back into games. They're a strong team, and would the pressure have gotten to the Waratahs like it did last week, despite that 29-0 lead? We will never know. But despite that, I think the Waratahs still look pretty slick. And the Highlanders, it's another poor one from them. They've been prone to a little bit of that in their away games this year, and this was kind of another one. During that 15-on-13 period, the Tars did score a try, but were pretty unimpressive, I thought. The Highlanders looked really organised. The Waratahs didn't look to be able to capitalise on having two men. They weren't finding that extra space. The Highlanders were doing a very good job of kind of holding them off. TMO was busy in this game. He was called on a few times and interjected at least once. And there was a moment when Rona went in and looked to have kind of scored, but the referee went with, I haven't got a grounding, so on-field decision, no try. And he went to the TMO, and it looked like one that probably maybe would have been a try. And I thought, man, if the TMO gives this, then he's a bit dodgy. But no. He kept it straight. He didn't give that try, and they also overturned Phipps's try. So he did try to overturn Dixon's try, Ash Dixon's try, but the ref waved him off. So he was busy. But I think for the most part they got the calls right, especially the red card. I don't think he can have any arguments. Like I said, Tars looked sharp before the card anyway. Bonus point win for them is absolutely massive. Finally break the streak over New Zealand teams. Massive. We can stop talking about that until the next time anyway. Highlanders' most impressive period was when they were down to 13 men. They seemed to be kind of fired up at that point. But for the rest of it, yeah, the Highlanders' defence is kind of one of the things they're really renowned for, but it just wasn't there this week. Even with 14 men, I thought the Highlanders would have done better than they did. Can the Tars do it in New Zealand is the next big question. They came close against the Crusaders. They pushed the Blues in Sydney. They've got the Chiefs next week. Imagine if they can do it with 15-on-15 against the Chiefs in New Zealand. That would be really encouraging, but it's also going to be pretty hard for the Highlanders. They've got another away game, so they just need to get things back in order because, yeah, this wasn't their best night. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I must say, though, at the end of the game, the Waratahs weren't celebrating like maniacs, which was good. There was a... Given that a streak is broken and everyone's not been talking about it, but it's still there was a risk that the Waratahs guys would kind of celebrate excessively, but they didn't. Once the whistle blew, they just were kind of like, oh, yep, cool, game done, shake hands, which I was pretty impressed by. Right, next, Sharks beat the Chiefs over in Durban. This game wasn't another pretty one, and the coach, Colin Cooper, kind of predicted that before the game started. He said it was going to be pretty much similar to that Stormers game last week. It was going to be a bit scrappy, and it was. Sharks had a really good early start, and you were thinking Chiefs without their All Blacks are going to be in trouble here. But no, Chiefs kind of held up and took chances where they were able to. The handling on both teams was pretty bad. There were 18 handling errors in the first half, which was... It was pretty evenly spread as well, so it wasn't champagne rugby by any stretch of the imagination. Sharks, some poor hands, poor decisions, poor passing, poor place kicking. Robert Dupree Jr. has been pretty good with his kicking this season, but a couple of those kicks were pretty ugly. Chiefs gave away too many penalties. Pretty stop-start. Run meters, 658 to the Sharks to 274 for the Chiefs is probably pretty telling that the Sharks could have done a lot better than they did. They had more possession, 59%, more territory, 64%. But in terms of the scoreline, only a 4-point difference. Speaks to how the Chiefs kind of stuck into this game and the Sharks weren't as clinical as they really should have been. Chiefs get a bonus point, which is impressive given how many kind of players they were missing this week. I should say it tries to Ardron, Nato and Alamalo. Alamalo's one was really late on just to secure the bonus point, so good that the Chiefs played to that last minute. Ardron continues his fine work this season. Sharks with Robert Dupree, Mvovo and Wright. So, yeah, Sharks probably, I mean, it keeps them in the race. I think they're still 8th on the log, so yeah, we'll see if it's enough. They're definitely going to need to step their game up when they play the Jaguares, who are in great form next week over in Argentina. The Chiefs, like I said, play the Tars next week. We'll see how they go. They should have some other players back, so we'll see if they're able to step it up. Next game, Lions took on the Brumbies over in Joburg. I only saw about the first 30 minutes of this one before my bed was calling me. But there were some pretty good moments, like Tom Banks scored a really great try early on, so the Brumbies really hit the ground running. Both scrums were getting penalised. But yeah, Banks was slick and ended up getting 2 tries. Should go through them. Rowan Janssen van Rensburg got a try. His one was pretty good, although I really wish he had forced the ball properly. He kind of swipes the ball when he forces it, but I'm not always convinced that the ball touches the ground. Anyway, I hope that doesn't ever cost him. Kutsia, Dreyer, Skurman, Reynolds, and Erasmus for the Brumbies, 2 to Banks, so 1 to Kurandrani. Kurandrani hasn't scored for a while, so good to see him finally break a tackle and get back in the tries. Lions maul was pretty deadly. The Brumbies over the last few years have been a pretty strong team in that area, but they were getting bullied around and it was costing them in penalties and also cards. So it was another game affected by cards. Rory Arnold got yellow carded and then eventually red carded, and Carter also got yellow carded as well. I think up until about the 60th minute, which is when there was the red card, the Brumbies were actually in front 24-21. So at that point I was thinking, this is when I'm watching the highlights because I slipped through the second half. I didn't know the result, but I was looking at the highlights thinking, this is where the altitude factor is going to start to kick in. But it wasn't the altitude, it was the lack of numbers. The Lions really blew them out in those last 20 minutes. I think they scored 14 points when Carter was off the field, like 1 try right before he came back on. And yeah, just really put the Brumbies to the sword. After they had that red card, they just couldn't score any more points, which was disappointing because to go 60 minutes and still be in it at Ellis Park was pretty cool for a Brumbies team who are not playing well this season. But yeah, that last 20 just made it look really lopsided. So probably doesn't reflect how the Brumbies played. But if you go to Ellis Park and play with 13 men for a while, you are always going to struggle. Yeah, Lions have got the Stormers away next week. Stormers are another team struggling, so Lions, in terms of that South African conference, need to keep on winning. They've been inconsistent this season. The Brumbies have got the Bulls, who will be travelling back from Argentina, so we'll see if they're able to keep 15 men on the park and perhaps take advantage of that travel factor that the Bulls will be facing. Next game, Jaguares 54 to the Bulls 24. Tries to Sanchez, Delgui, who got 2, Crema, Orlando, Cancellieri, and Boffelli. For the Bulls, Galant, Nick Diaka, and Warner. Again, another one with a pretty quick start. Jaguares going in pretty early. Man, how many games is this in a row for the Jaguares now? It's like 5. Their season has just really come good. Sanchez pretty much masterclass in this game. I didn't see it live, unfortunately. So yeah, they're looking a real threat. If I don't know how long this run can keep going, but it's going pretty well at the moment. And remember, a lot of these games that they won were away. Finding a lot of space out wide, good scrum platform. I mean, you look at all these try scorers, and it's pretty much all backs. I mean, when people stereotype Argentinian rugby, they say, oh yeah, big scrum, big forwards, passionate. That's all they say. But these guys were just slick and running the ball into great lines. I mean, the Bulls had their own moments. Halant ran a good line for his try. I didn't see the whole game, so Libak looked pretty good from what I saw of him at 10, but I'll take any feedback in the comments on that. So Pollard at 12 is always an interesting one because I think he can play at a pretty high level there as well as 10. Yeah, so they had some key men away, the Bulls, like no Ludiacha, which was disappointing. Yeah, when you get beaten 54-24, it's hard to put it down to any one man being missing. For the Jaguares, they're in 7th, 3 points behind the Highlanders. So, man, how far can the season go? I'm not sure. They have played a game more than the Highlanders, though, so they'll have to see if any teams above them keep dropping points and keep their own winning run going. I should say as well that the Jaguares, they offloaded actually fewer times than the Bulls, but their offloads that I saw actually seem to be smart ones. And in seasons gone by, you've seen them just try to offload everything from everywhere, and it's not worked. But this season it seems to be just smarter rugby all round. For the Jaguares, they are home to the Sharks, like I said. So it's looking like a pretty daunting prospect for the Sharks at the moment. And the Bulls have a chance to get things back on track against the Brumbies, who are coming off a pretty big loss themselves. So yeah, we will see what happens. I kind of wish I'd brought my Jaguares jersey with me to China because they're in such good form. I should be wearing that, but I got the Waratahs one with me, so yeah, I guess I get to vary things up a little bit. Good for me. What did you guys think of the games? Like I said, I didn't see all of them in entirety. Pretty much Bulls, Crusaders, Waratahs, Highlanders, and Sharks, Chiefs. I saw all. Sunwolves, Stormers, I saw more than half. Lions, Brumbies, I saw about half, and unfortunately, Jaguares one, I only saw bits and pieces. So, yeah, plenty of good games. All Black squad has been named. If you guys haven't seen that, I'll be popping a video about that shortly to see who the winners and losers were from that. But yeah, like I said, let me know your guys' thoughts on this set of games, and I will talk to you again for another one shortly. See you later.